To my knowledge, both you and other members of the British Occult Society carried out a number of vigils at the cemetery, of course, which you've sort of covered already, and attempted on at least 2 occasions to exorcise the sites, both of the entity and any lingering malign influences from the dark arts. Was the entity sighted or any other unusual events experienced during any of these occasions?
The first occasion, I know, was in August 1970, went to Highgate Cemetery with a psychic medium with the purpose of conducting a ceremony in the cemetery to make communication with the so-called entity, which we did, or we attempted to do. We went to a fairly secluded but flat place towards the back of the cemetery, and we had with us certain implements, for example, only small things like candles and incense, and charcoal, which was to represent the element of fire. And the idea was to cast a circle on the ground with a small triangle adjacent to it, and the psychic medium was going to make communication with the entity, purpose to find out the reason for it being earthbound, which you suspected it was, try and find out any information we could about it. Yeah.
Which location was this within the cemetery?
That was quite near the back of the cemetery.
Okay.
Not far from St Michael's Church.
So that was like kind of towards the entrance of the North Gate, was it? The old...
It wasn't far from the North Gate, but it was further into the cemetery.
Okay.
And in the process of preparing for the ritual, everybody, as a matter of course, all wore small wooden crosses, if you like, Celtic crosses. We were going to light the charcoal in the triangle, and she was going to make communication with the entity. As we were preparing for it, the police arrived. We heard them clambering over the back wall. In fact, it was a horrendous, well, very, very quiet in the cemetery, but we heard the sound of loud voices, and we saw flashlights going off in the air, so we knew it was the police. It was obvious. We'd obviously been keeping a watch on Highgate Cemetery because of all the stupid vampire stories there. I made a dash for the back wall, and I had with me a small tape recorder, a tiny little thing, and a camera, and a stake which was attached to a piece of white cord. I believe I had a torch, and a couple of candles, that sort of thing. The other people took the rest of the implements, because they'd driven up there in 2 cars, which were parked in the forecourt, the front court.
And how many were you in this group?
About 5.
About 5.
But I knew people who lived in a house in South Grove, which actually backed on, whose garden of the house backed onto Highgate Cemetery. The police were coming towards me, having come through the back gate of the cemetery, and I thought if I could escape, if that's a word I must use. I didn't want to answer questions, I didn't want to name other people. I would just climb over the small fence into this people's back garden, and if they caught me there, it was a family there, knew me anyway, I'd just say to them, look, the police have just arrived and I don't want to answer questions, that sort of thing. But it didn't happen, because as I was making at a tangent on the right towards the back gate, or rather not the back gate where the police had come in, but the back wall to the garden, the police were getting closer and closer, and I put the stuff down on the grave noted the name as the camera and the tape recorder into the undergrowth above the grave. And the next moment I was caught in the flashlight. I'll also drop the
Stop
stake.
where you are! Problem, officer? You know full well that there's a problem. Sulking around cemeteries, just not...
It's just perfectly harmless.
Don't be smart with me. If there's anyone hidden in any of these
I
bushes...
assure you, I'm alone.
Come with me.
Taken to Kenchtown Police Station, kept there. I refused to name the other people, and I also refused to give them my address. I was living in Highgate. The reason being, if I'd given my address, they would have immediately gone to my flat in Highgate, and they'd have seen all the records of the society, and they've got all the names of the people easily. Even if it was about 1 o'clock in the morning, they'd have still gone there and that sort of thing. So I couldn't verify where I lived, but I also refused to name the other people because I knew they'd done nothing wrong, and I knew of my reputation, and I knew what the police were up to. They were questioning me for quite a couple of hours at least, and they'd heard about the vampire, and they said, come on. They were joking or just mocking. You don't believe in vampires, do you? So I told them I did, and it was part of a serious psychic investigation. The story. As far as I was concerned, that really was the end of the story. And when I went in to see the inspector in charge of the case, I saw all my material, which they picked up from the grave, lined up on the desk. A camera, tape recorder, the stake, with the cord, candles and my torch. So, when they decided I was being decidedly uncool, I even gave a false name. I wouldn't give them my name. I was trying to protect other members of the group, society, from publicity, because they were quite important people. That's all. It's as simple as that. The inspector came up to me and he said, look, we'll make a deal with you. You haven't given us your real name, and you refused to give us your address.
I was partaking in a serious psychic investigation into a phenomenon. It isn't a vampire.
Yet, you have a stake. You're quite fortunate that in this country there aren't any actual laws against vampire hunting.
Well, seeing as I wasn't vampire hunted, I'm sure I'll sleep easy then.
He said, so we'll have to keep you in custody overnight, which is why when the press picked up the story the next day, it was in the heading, it said, Farrant of no fixed address. We also gave the wrong name.
Was that when it was Alan Farrow?
That's the name I gave to the police,
Okay.
to put them off the scent. And he said to me, he more or less made a deal with me. If you plead guilty, you'll get your wish. The case will be over and you'll just be warned with trespass. And he was just going to warn you for trespass and no one will hear about it. I didn't want to embarrass or I was trying to protect other people, society. And they kept me in overnight, and the next morning, now, just a bit of background to this. Got to remember, at that stage, there'd been tremendous vandalism in Highgate Cemetery. Coffins had been literally ripped open, stakes due to television programmes. People were copycatting what people had said on the television, going into Highgate Cemetery and driving wooden stakes through bodies there. That's all on record, which the police more or less said in court. He told me if I pleaded guilty, the case would be over quickly with minimal fuss. So I did. I took him at his word. He stood up in court and he produced the only items he produced were the stake. I believe he produced the cord, but he'd undone it from the stake.
Okay.
And a cross. And all the stuff that they were putting to me in the police station, which I denied, they wrote a statement for me. I didn't write it, it was in his handwriting. And it read to the effect of, he read it to the court. When arrested, I said that my intention was to seek out the king vampire of the undead, opening coffins if necessary. Now that was the unlawful purpose. That was the essence of the charge, being in an enclosed area for an unlawful purpose.
Which was vampire hunting.
Well, that was how they tried to back the charge up. Trespassing didn't even come into it. That would have been a fine. But the unlawful purpose was opening coffins till I found the vampire and driving a stake through the heart. I hadn't written that statement, but he'd taken it down in longhand in his own words and said that I'd said it, which I did not say. So in other words, I was being made a scapegoat for all the vandalism in Highgate Cemetery. They were more or less given court a carte blanche account, saying that I was responsible for all this other vandalism. And immediately after that, I changed my plea to not guilty. I gave the court my real name, but I still didn't name the other people, and I still didn't give them my address, actually. I changed my plea, and they gave me bail. And I went back determined to fight the case, which I did. It was adjourned 2 or 3 times, and I believe on one occasion the magistrate, well no, I don't believe, I know, the magistrate that heard it was called Christopher Lee. You can laugh if you want to, but it's true. I said in court it was a serious part of a serious psychic investigation, and I said in other words, I said in any event it's just as akin for groups of people to hunt out the Loch Ness Monster, spend vast sums of money investigating the Loch Ness Monster, as it is for people to so-called hunt vampires according to the police. It's no difference. It was a psychic investigation. I told them I didn't even believe in vampires in any event. In other words, I was saying that what the police officer said about my statement, staking the king vampire, was was just a lie. But on the 3rd occasion, the case was heard and I was acquitted. And the magistrate actually said that I would have had to open coffins to find the vampire, and this was what constituted the charge, before I find the vampire and stake it. He said, but he was quite satisfied that this was not the case, that David Farrant had already been on television, which he was not aware of. He shouldn't have been in the cemetery under the circumstances. He said, but in any event, the cemetery was not an enclosed area in the strict legal sense, and I was acquitted.
What sort of time were you caught? Was it? Did you go to undertake this ritual at night?
Oh, it was around after midnight, I think.
She could argue, if they wanted to stick by the vampire lore story, you could say, well, it's not the best time to be hunting vampires. Usually if they're in their coffins, it's during the day. But maybe that'd be seen as taking the piss.
I never thought of that.
Going by their own logic. And you said you tried a second attempt. I don't know, I suppose exorcism's not quite the right word, but a clearing ritual. A ritual, did that
Yeah, we did, yeah. That was in June, on June 21st, 1971. We picked June 21st specifically, because it was the summer solstice, and again we took the medium with us. And it was more or less at the same location. We did conduct a ceremony, yeah. We did actually light a fire. It wasn't so much bright, but there was loads of charcoal on it. There was smoke coming up in the air, a few bits of wood which were sending up glowing embers into the sky. Now, a girl there actually swore that she'd seen something materialise in the triangle that we cast just aside.
Did anybody else see it, or was it just this individual?
Somebody else came to have seen it. I didn't actually see it.
Yeah.
She did, and she also thought it was trying to strangle her. It was that bad. And she panicked, and
I mean, was it the case like the nurse being knocked to the ground? Did actually something appear to come out to strangle her? Did she just feel the sensation after seeing it being?
No, she claimed she actually saw a figure appear in the triangle.
Yeah.
Where we'd lit the small fire.
But when she had the sensation of being strangled, was it an invisible force?
It was an invisible force.
But she felt it was coming from this thing.
Oh
that she
yeah,
was seeing.
yeah, absolutely. She felt her hands around her throat and she couldn't breathe. And she panicked. So we dismissed the ceremony. We banished it very quickly when we left.
So only this individual and somebody else saw it within the triangle. Did you see it, or did anyone?
No, I didn't actually see it physically myself.
No.
But I saw the girl and I saw the state she was in. I think that's the second ceremony which I say successful.
Did that sort of confirm to you that this thing was malignant in its intent?
That's one of the reasons that convinced me that it was probably activated by the satanic group that had been using Highgate Cemetery. They'd actually conjured up or reactivated something that was fairly malign. Something of a psychic nature, yeah. Didn't know what it was. Except it wasn't a vampire.
Was there any other attempt after that second attempt, or?
No.
No, that was it. Okay.
No, that was the final attempt.
Okay. On the night of August the 17th, I take it this was 1970?
Yeah.
Correct me if I was wrong. You were arrested in a cemetery, apparently while engaged in a vampire hunt, armed with a crossing stake, for being in an enclosed area for the unlawful purpose, which you've already sort of covered, the implication being that you intended to break into tombs. Whether you've since maintained you weren't there to hunt vampires but doing something else. Oh, we've sort of covered that, haven't we, really?
Yeah.
In that sort of question. One's done. Okay, you were acquitted on September the 29th, 1970, mainly on the grounds that Highgate, technically speaking, was an enclosed area, and that the vampire hunting akin to searching the Loch Ness Monster is technically not illegal. You've sort of covered that already, but I suppose it leads into the question: did your release did your release add further to your investigations?
After I was acquitted at the 1970 trial, I was more determined I would not give up investigations, psychic investigations. I'd seen what the police had tried to do to me, how they tried to frame me, how they tried to introduce that really serious element into that charge, which was unlawful purpose, which entailed, or would have they maintained, would have meant opening coffins and staking the vampire. That was the essence of that charge. Make no mistake about it. The trespassing was just technical.
Yeah.
The trespassing charge on its own, I would have literally been probably fined and said, don't go back into the cemetery when it's closed. But as I read to you earlier, everybody was going in there and doing acts of really serious vandalism.
So really the police were just basically out to, they saw an
somebody.
opportunity through you to use as an example, basically,
Yeah, and they
to
found
others.
one. They found one. I was there.
And of course your name was already well known,
Yes. Yeah.
particularly relating to this case.
Yes.
Okay, just over 2 weeks later, on October the 15th, you appeared on a news programme called 24 Hours, in a reenactment of your activities at the cemetery, as indicated by Lawrence Pinthree's voiceover. This included stalking about the cemetery for crossing a stake in search of a vampire. Considering you'd been acquitted only a short time beforehand, what was the rationale for representing yourself in this manner, if you were keen to distance yourself from the vampire hunter tag?
Well, I wasn't keen to distance myself from the Highgate vampire tag. I was keen to distance myself from the evidence that the police tried to put forward in the case, of which I was acquitted. I wasn't too pleased at the way that the police were trying to set me up for that vampire hunting charge. I was approached by BBC, sure, it's true, and they wanted me to sort of, as I'd been acquitted, they had a free licence. Wouldn't have been the same thing if I'd have been found guilty. But as it was a partial news programme, that was 24 hours. It was transmitted on October the 16th, I believe, 1970. It was my way of getting back at the police. I thought it was an ideal opportunity. I didn't believe in vampires. I already told the police that at the police station. But they tried to set me up as opening coffins and staking a vampire. I thought, right, I've been given this opportunity. I'll show the police. And I realised it was on BBC television. Peak time. Being in the cemetery, they wanted me to bring it across on the stake. And incidentally, I didn't tell you, but the actual stake, the purpose of which was to cast a magical circle.
Hence the rope as well attached, the string.
Hence the rope attached to the stake. It wasn't a rope, it was a piece of cord.
Okay.
And the police had conveniently removed the cord. They produced the cord, but they untied it from the stake.
So then that can almost then imply that you were vampire hunting, hence the
Of course they could, yeah. Why they produced the cord, I don't know. They're probably trying to imply to the court that I intended to tie the vampire up when I caught it. I know it's funny now looking back on it, but this is
like I said, it was particularly wise to go stalking for a vampire in the middle of the night, considering it's its most active. So says vampire law. So.
Yeah, good point. Anyway.
So basically, you wanted to just reenact what the police were kind of accusing you of.
Yes.
Which was stalking the cemetery of a
that
an
is
estate.
what the BBC wanted. They had permission to film in the cemetery, so I wasn't trespassing. I was with a film crew. They just wanted me. They mentioned the case. They mentioned I was acquitted. That the court had found I wasn't guilty of it, and they just wanted pictures of me walking among the tombs with a cross and a stake. Simple as that. I don't know why people try and complicate it so much. It certainly doesn't mean that I did it because I believed in vampires. It was my way of going to the police. Well, I won't do it on film.
The following day, an article titled Midnight Vigil for the Highgate Vampire was published by London's Evening News. Once again, you represented going on a vampire hunt, this time with Barry Simons, or is that Simmons?
Simmons.
The article appears to represent the first public dissociation from a belief in vampires. To quote, "I don't believe in vampires in the commercial sense of the word. I don't think they suck people's blood." The same article also quotes you saying, "We are sure there is a vampire there. I think he sleeps during the day in a coffin in the catacombs, along with an intent to stake it." How do you explain this dichotomy?
There's no dichotomy. I thought the whole thing was so ridiculous. I went to the cemetery. The evening news had already seen the television programme the night before. It was on 10 o'clock. They'd seen it, and they wanted to drag me up to the cemetery really quickly so they could bring their edition out the next day, to sort of as a news interest to people that watched the TV programme. I was just carrying along the same lines as I had done with the BBC in the transmission the night before. I was walking around with the cross on the stake, but it wasn't because I believed in vampires. It's the same answer I just gave you in relation to the police. It was to say to the police, look, I was doing nothing wrong. I'm far from being frightened of you. I've been invited on the television. I'm going to walk around the cemetery now with a cross and a stake. That's the reason I did it. Okay, I was a lot younger. I probably wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't do that now. But that is the reason I did it.
So was it just the reporter, Barry Simmons, that accompanied you that night?
No,
he a photographer as well? Or?
A photographer as well. I can't remember his name.
And how long did you stay?
Quite a few hours. I wandered all around Highgate Cemetery. But no police this time.
And no vampires?
No vampires either.
Okay. Do you regret posing for stage photographs for the newspapers in the early 1970s? And do you think that because of them, any serious investigation that you've done was treated with contempt because of them?
Well, I think I know who's asking that question. Remember your group, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. I don't know him personally. I should add, I don't know him personally. But no, I mean, look, Redmond, this is a really important point. You know, when I wrote the first volume, or part of my first volume, which was published as a book, Dark Secrets, I looked at all the handwritten notes I'd written. I looked at a lot of them had been smuggled out of prison because I wasn't allowed to write in prison. At least you had to submit it, which would have been a waste of time because it had been confiscated. It was all very against the police and what had happened, about how they tried to frame me. So I decided to smuggle the whole of the book out in letters. I wrote letters to people. I had letters smuggled out of prison. I'm not ashamed of that because they shouldn't have stopped my letters in the first place. And I read through all the material, a lot of it, as I said, handwritten, and anything I could find, prison paper, appeal sheets, which I didn't need. I was just writing a book on it. I looked at it all, you know, and I thought, shall I publish a lot of this? Shall I get it all typed out, put it into book form and publish it? Because a lot of this stuff I don't feel the same way about now. And I'm going back now, 76, 77, when I came out of prison. And I thought, no, I've got two choices here. I'm not going to amend it, because to amend it would have been to try and change the past. I'm not going to revise history. That is how I felt at the time. I put all my deepest feelings down. Sorry, I pointed that inadvertently.
Yeah, just to symbolise.
No.
Yeah.
I looked at all the notes and I thought, two choices. Either don't publish it or you publish it as it was. Obviously not counting the grammar and the layout and stuff like that, but the actual meaning, I'm not going to change it. And it's the same answer that applies to that person's question. When we're younger, and I'm talking about everybody, not only myself, you and me and everybody else, it's just a part of human nature. As you go through life, you look back and you say, my God, I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I hadn't got involved in that affair with that person because I didn't know that was going to happen. I should have avoided them beginning, or you know, all
good in hindsight.
Yes, but you can't change it. I mean, you shouldn't change it because it's. But I think life is part of the learning process. You go through life and you learn by experience. It's so important, and you shouldn't attempt to change how you felt at the time. And I had that choice. Publish that as you felt at the time, what happened, or don't publish it at all. I chose to publish it. What probably helped with that decision was I came out of prison and they treated me pretty badly in there. And, well, nearly killed me. Quite literally, rather, I nearly killed myself by on a hunger strike. Had all the injustice and that sort of thing. I came out of prison, I was pretty weak. I thought, I'm going to publish this as it is. So the answer to that person's question is, no, we all do things in the past that we regret. I regret a lot of them, but I can't change them. Which doesn't mean to say I agree that I did pose for photographs. I did with a couple of people who misused them for the wrong reasons. People approached me saying they were writing a book on me, got me to pose for photographs, and I did it in all innocence. And years later they're trying to twist it, the meaning of me holding a stake or something. Farrant in his vampire hunting days. When those pictures have been deliberately misused. But I didn't misuse them.
No.
But I had no reason to know that they were going to be used in that way in the future. As evidence that I was a black magician, a Satanist, or whatever, which I'm not, I never have been.
And finally, David, just to round up the interview, do you have anything in the works concerning the Highgate vampire case, such as like an updated book?
Simple answer to that is, simple answer for a change, yes, I do. I'm working on the 3rd volume of my autobiography, which will include the new chapter with the Victorian sources on the Highgate vampire, but it'll probably be a good year before I complete it.
Okay. Will that bring everything up to date, or
as up to date as possible?
as possible?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, David, for your time and your patience, and I hope that people be satisfied with the answers that you've given. It's been most enlightening. Thank you very much, David.
Well, thank you for your interest, and I'd like to think they would, but I doubt, you know, if all of them will be.
We'll see.
You can't change human nature sometimes, especially when it comes to the occult. I think I've been bloody nice to them in this circumstance.
Right, camera off.